crazy wild man luck. Okay, so what I thought of doing today was talk about what is so special about Jesus. What is it about Jesus that puts him above other spiritual teachers? Is there anything about Christianity that points to the ascendancy and centrality of who Jesus is? And there's a lot of things that come to mind, but I'm going to write them down so I don't forget as I'm going through them. First thing that comes to mind are the prophecies. In the Old Testament. I know some people, I was watching Bill Maher's documentary, Religious, and he's kind of poking fun at some aspects of faith that he thinks are ridiculous, and people would be better off, in his opinion, not to even bother with any of these things. He looks at them as fairy tales, and also people who buy into that too much cause much of the violence in the world. And he even speaks about, some fundamentalist Christians who are looking so forward to the return of Jesus that they actually might play into the accelerating tension between nations so that nuclear war results, and something that could have been avoided was actually pushed by fundamentalist Christians and fundamentalist Muslims, because everyone's looking for a Messiah to return, so let's just move it along. So I agree with him on that. I think that's ridiculous if people are actually doing that instead of focusing on their own character development and improvement of life for all. I disagree with him on, his, he thinks miracles can't happen, and, questions Jesus. And one of the things he mentions in the movie, which I wanted to bring up at this point, was that, if the Old Testament was written first, then it was very easy, in his opinion, for writers of the New Testament to then just write as if those prophecies had been fulfilled and create a story that shows that those prophecies have been fulfilled. So this really doesn't help people to decide whether or not they believe Jesus to be the Son of God or the Savior of the world. I suppose that's possible, but to me it's more intellectually unlikely, and that is because I'm not an expert on the Bible, so I'm going to just mention a few prophecies that I know of. I think the most important prophecies are the ones in the Old Testament that point to a coming Messiah, and verses that refer to him suffering, that it pleased God to bruise him, that the iniquity of us all was placed upon him, that he would come from the line of David. I think those are the primary prophecies. And so looking at the life of Jesus, he did come from the line of David. His impact was such that it changed the world, so to me that fits, the qualifications of being a Messiah, or the Messiah. So that to me is fairly striking. Now, if he hadn't had the impact that he did, and he didn't come from the line of David, then I think you could Bill Maher's claim that the New Testament was just written to fit the Old Testament could be a plausible one. But I think because of the effect he had and how he changed people's lives so dramatically in his own time and quickly thereafter, and even to this day, dramatic changes occur in people's lives when they become believers and invite Jesus' presence into their lives. All of that to me is just too remarkable of evidence for it to be false. Now, I know there's people out there who would say that, all right, I'm not going to get into the virgin birth prophecy because, no one can really prove that, and I know for some Christians that's an essential doctrine, because if Jesus was not born of this world, he didn't have original sin, therefore he could live as an acceptable sacrifice for the world's sin. That's their story. I personally think that he could have been born of a young woman, which is another term that's used for virgin, and still had, the life of God breathed into him.
Oh yeah, baby.
Still lived the holy life before God and before men. Still had the incredible impact in people's lives at the time.
Oh yeah.
And now 2,000 years later.
This guy is great.
I think all that still could occur. So if you believe that, then that's fine. But
this is the best stuff on the web.
So the prophecies, and then what I'm saying, his initial impact was revolutionary. And that I think is shown in the martyrdom that occurred, that people like Paul, or any number of people who could have, were, staunch persecutors of the church and of Christians, became transformed in this faith in Jesus, and their lives just, they became preachers and full of life and full of hope, and just could be content in anything.
Oh yeah, baby. The heroes of history.
That's striking.
Oh yeah.
So that occurred, shortly after his death, and even today. I don't know the figures of it, but I'd be willing to guess that Christianity has had more converts in the world, in the history of the world, than any other religion. If not, it certainly is. I guess Muslims might be challenging that somewhat, but I don't know.
What kind of life are they
so
producing?
If anybody has the figures, you can call me and let me know. But I'll just say...
Let's destroy innocent people's lives.
I'll just say world conversion. So between the martyrs and converting most of the world, then and thereafter, that is a huge impact.
What better backdrop than Andy Williams?
Please, come to Papa. What else can we say about Jesus?